Ugh.
You want to sit there?
Sure.
And then I'll sit here. You know what slide number you are? I'm just providing the early career data.
Ugh.
I'm not sure it is.
So good evening, everyone. Those of you who don't know me or have forgotten who I am, I'm Michael New. I'm currently the Deputy Associate Administrator for Research in the Science Mission Directorate. But before I was that, I was the astrobiology discipline scientist for 15 years. I got to say, it's great to be back amongst astrobiologists. It's really great to see so many familiar faces. It's even more great to see so many new faces. And I think that's always been something very rewarding to me about astrobiology, is the constant flow of new people, new ideas into what is a great science. It's been 2 years, more actually, since we last met outside of Seattle in 2019. It's been quite a rough couple of years. Personally, for some people, as a community, as a nation, and a world. In addition to the new faces I'm meeting, there are some familiar faces that I will not see. And I believe that they will live in our blessed memory and provide comfort in the future. It's quite a future, though. Laurie Glaze, the Division Director from Planetary Science Division, will be telling you all about the really cool stuff coming up. You know, sample returns, missions to Titan, things like that. Mary Voytek, the astrobiology senior scientist, and Lindsay Hayes, her deputy, send their regrets that they can't be here in person, and they sent me instead. I think you guys got the worst part of the deal there, but okay, fine, we can move on. And Mary asked me, since I'm doing this, to give you guys a little brief overview of a couple of the things that SMD, the Science Mission Directorate, writ large is doing before we get on to the more Planetary Science Division and then astrobiology program specific stuff. So I'll stop talking about me now. So one of the things that we've been very interested in promoting in SMD is high impact, high risk research. It was a priority in 2018. It is still a priority for us right now. Now, it's important to notice when I say high risk, I do not mean high technical risk. I mean high intellectual risk. My boss likes to sometimes call this reputational risk. You're going to propose something that the panel may look at and go, they said what? So we've done a recent reanalysis of some data, and we compared it to the analysis we did back in 2018. What we found is that it is absolutely still true that high risk, high impact proposals form a very small fraction of the proposals actually submitted to the Science Mission Directorate. But those proposals are selected at a much, much higher rate than all the other proposals we get. So if you guys have a high intellectual risk, high impact idea for a proposal, and I'm sure everybody at AbSciCon has at least one, please consider sending it to NASA. The odds of getting selected are higher than just sending in a routine proposal. DEIA, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility is also another thing that we in SMD have been focusing on for at least the last 4 or 5 years. We've recognized that there's a real lack of diversity along all the axes of diversity in terms of both funded researchers and funded institutions. We are in the process of introducing a whole portfolio of programs and approaches to try to remedy this. These include an expansion of our dual anonymous peer review program. Those of you may have read this. Dual anonymous peer review is a situation in which we do not let peer reviewers know who is proposing and what their institutions are until after they have decided on the scientific merit of a proposal. This has been shown in other contexts to mitigate a number of biases. We are also developed and employing codes of conduct for our peer reviewers, for our program officers, now for NASA-sponsored conferences like this one, and we will soon be codifying a standardized code of conduct for both mission teams and field work. In addition to the codes of conduct, we will be coming up with reasonable reporting, effective reporting, and effective implementation approaches. We also are coming up with ways to try to increase our outreach to minority-serving institutions and primarily undergraduate institutions. What we found is that a rather small percentage of proposals we get come from these types of institutions. However, they are selected at about the same rate you'd expect. So the big barrier is not in evaluating and selecting these types of proposals. It is getting them in the first place. Part of that is we are creating something called the Bridge Program. This will be a program to link minority-serving and primarily undergraduate-serving institutions to both big research universities and NASA centers to diversify both the science workforce generally and NASA's workforce in particular. There's a Dear Colleague letter that went out recently asking for people to volunteer to serve on an organizing committee for a couple of workshops we're going to be doing to try to hear from the community what they want in a bridge program. If you're interested, I do encourage you to send in your application. We will be providing travel. If there isn't any travel involved, we'll be providing travel as well as generous honoraria. And finally, we are in the process, SMD, of having a much greater presence at a variety of meetings like SACNAS, National Association of Black Physicists, and so on. Lori, I know, will tell you a little bit about some great work they're doing with the National Association of Black Physicists as well. We have a new forthcoming program, ICOR. Has anybody here ever heard of the NSF program, ICOR? Can I see a show of hands? A couple. That's about what I expected. So ICOR is a 10-year-old NSF program that uses experiential learning to help researchers gain insights into entrepreneurship, starting a business, or how to interact with industry partners. The NASA pilot is a pilot program. It's going to aim to reduce the time and risk of translating ideas and technology from the lab to the marketplace. We're going to be doing this through 2-phase training grants. The first phase is about $10,000 to support a very, very small team to go to an NSF regional short course. And then we can augment that by up to $40K to provide additional support for those who move on to the national course. Application for this program will be open only to higher education institutions and research nonprofits. So unfortunately, NASA civil servants and other agency civil servants currently will not be able to participate. The key thing is to demonstrate relevance to either NASA Science Mission Directorate objectives or NASA Space Technology Mission Directorate objectives. This announcement will be going out very, very soon. Another new piece of information, how many of you have wrestled with submitting proposals to PubSpace, the NASA part of PubMed? You all should have had problems because you all should be submitting your papers to it. Well, hopefully for many of us that will be a thing of the past. We are entering into a partnership with something called the Clearinghouse for the Open Research of the United States, Chorus. This is a publishing group composed of most of the major journal publishers. Once the agreement is finalized, publishing in a Chorus-affiliated journal will automatically put your proposal, your paper into an accessible space, and so you will meet NASA's requirements. It's expected that the Chorus covers about 90% of NASA publications. It includes major publishers like AAS, AGU, Springer, Elsevier, and IOP. Unfortunately, if you publish in a journal that's not a chorus, published by a chorus member, you will still have to go through PubSpace, but they are building a new interface that is supposed to be easier to use. The Office of the Chief Scientist of NASA will be announcing this very soon, and once it's announced, we will alter the language of the ROSES solicitation to say go to chorus, not go to PubSpace. And a final note, starting in about 2019, we began a series of things called PI launch pads. These are intensive, multi-day events where that are focused on helping researchers who have the beginnings of a flight mission idea take that mission idea to the next level. We work on elevator pitches. We work on what an elevator pitch is, if you don't know. We work on issues and how to assemble a team, what support you should expect and demand from your home institution. We also provide structured networking opportunities for NASA centers, other mission management centers, and aerospace companies. We're going to be holding the next one in June of 2023 at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Pretty much almost everything from the first two PI launch pads are available online. So this includes the slides that were presented, the videos of the talks, and the workbooks that we gave out to participants. And that's the link. So basically, if you go to Science NASA Gov Researchers, PI Launchpad, and there's a wealth of material there if you're interested in ever putting together a mission. So please be on the lookout for the next call for applications. It should come out late this year. Important point to warn you about, the application focuses very, very little on the science of your mission. It focuses mostly on the leadership aspects of running a mission, because you can always get technical knowledge by the yard, but being able to lead a team in an effective and inclusive manner is something that a lot of scientists and engineers have not really been trained to do. And so that's one of the things that the application is going to focus on is, have you thought about some of these ideas? So it's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Lori Glaze. Dr. Lori Glaze is the director of the Planetary Science Division at NASA, Science Mission Directorate. Lori.
Great. Thank you, Michael. And it is so good to be here at AbSciCon. I really am excited to be invited to come talk to you all this year. I had hoped to come talk to you a year ago, and of course that didn't happen, so we're here now. So I'm really, really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me here. So I just wanted to give a little bit of an update of some things that are going on in the Planetary Science Division. I will attempt to kind of skew the emphasis on things that hopefully are of relevance to this particular audience. But I always like to start with this chart. This is our overall planetary science fleet. And what I like to tell folks, and I say it all the time, is it is an amazing time to be a planetary scientist. You can see on this chart we have 38 missions right now, either in development or in operations, that are planetary science missions. Some of those are led by NASA, some of them are led by our international partners with NASA contributions, but it really is an amazing fleet. Some incredible science that's being done and will be done by this fleet of spacecraft that span the solar system all the way from Mercury out to beyond Pluto into the Kuiper Belt. So we'll talk a little bit about a couple of these. I wanted to focus on some recent highlights. Hopefully folks here are fully aware of the Mars 2020 Perseverance mission, which is on Mars now today. It's actually celebrated a year on the surface of Mars back in February. Of course, the main purpose of the Perseverance mission is to search out the signs of past microbial life on Mars. And we specifically selected Jezero Crater as a place that has an environment that might have been or should have been conducive to life forming on Mars about 3.5 billion years ago. You can see on the top image here, we've been spending the last year exploring the crater floor and trying to set the context for that habitability. What was the environment like at the time that there was standing water in this crater on Mars? You can see our wheel tracks going off into the distance there as we've been traversing across the crater floor. And in the bottom image, you can see as we've turned around now and looking forward, we've been quickly progressing and traversing around to a river delta that is in the crater, where there's signs that a river was flowing into that standing body of water and then depositing its sediments there. Of course, that river would have had a very large catchment area, and it is evidence that water actually persisted on the surface of Mars for long enough, and in the time frame that life was forming on Earth, that potentially life may have started to take hold on Mars. And you can see in the foreground there a remnant of that delta, but you can see kind of in the middle distance the actual delta front, the flow front, which I think is incredible. You can see the layers of sedimentary deposits within that delta, and we're now on the verge of getting ready to explore up a gully to actually look through the various profiles through that delta and look for those signs of past microbial life. I wanted to point out, of course, that I believe Katie Stack-Morgan and Minnie Wadwa are speaking tomorrow morning, and I imagine you'll get to hear a lot more about this mission. One of the key objectives of this mission is also to not only take measurements and look at the deposits in situ on the surface of Mars, but to collect some samples that will eventually be returned back to Earth from the Mars Sample Return Program. And so we're really excited about that Mars Sample Return mission. It is underway in phase A of development with expectation that it would launch at the end of this decade in partnership with the European Space Agency, fly to Mars, collect those samples that Perseverance has been taking and bring them back here to Earth. So that's pretty exciting times to realize a dream that we've had for decades and decades to bring a sample back from Mars. Wanted to speak for a moment about our partner asteroid missions, OSIRIS-REx, which is the U.S. mission, and Hayabusa 2, which is a mission led by the Japanese Space Agency, JAXA. Both of these missions visited asteroids over the last several years and were able to collect samples of those asteroids to bring back to Earth. Again, these asteroids being, carrying remnants of the earliest part of our solar system, and hopefully being able to provide us insights into the building blocks for life that may have been delivered by these asteroids to Earth and other bodies in the solar system, as well as the water that would have been delivered to the various planets that could have been the seeds for the oceans that we have today. The samples from the Hayabusa 2 mission were delivered to Earth in December of 2020, and they've been, the teams have been analyzing and doing some great work with those samples, and we're actually sharing samples between JAXA and NASA, and the NASA portion of that sample was delivered to NASA, to Johnson Space Center in December of 2021. So that's an exciting step there on Hayabusa 2. OSIRIS-REx is still winging its way back from asteroid Bennu and expected to deliver those samples in the fall of 2023. So we're anxiously awaiting those samples to be delivered back here as well. Again, allowing us to use the full breadth of our analytic capabilities here on Earth and take advantage of the entire scientific community around the world to analyze those samples. Looking ahead, we have some amazing and incredible missions coming up that Michael kind of alluded to in his opening remarks. First and foremost, Europa Clipper, which is our next big so-called flagship or directed strategic mission. It's moving towards a launch in 2024, so that's coming up quick. It's getting here, it's going to be here soon. Europa Clipper is a mission to fly a spacecraft that'll go into orbit around Jupiter and then execute multiple flybys of Jupiter's moon, Europa. It's equipped with an incredible suite of instruments that will map out the composition of the materials on the ice of Europa, on its ice crust. It will help to measure the thickness of that icy crust. It will help to help us understand the depth and salinity of the ocean on Europa, and help us really understand just how habitable that environment is today for life on Europa. It says here on the chart they entered into their assembly, test, and launch operations, or ATLO, in March of this year, meaning they're really starting to pull the hardware together from that spacecraft and build the spacecraft and getting it ready for launch. Wanted to mention Dragonfly. One interesting part about Dragonfly is that I believe that was announced, the selection of Dragonfly, 3 years ago here at AbSciCon, the one that Michael was referring to in Seattle. That amazing announcement, we were so excited about the selection of Dragonfly, which really is an incredible mission to explore Titan, the moon of Saturn, an organic, rich environment, to fly a dual quadcopter rotorcraft on Titan and explore the chemistry and the environment, the habitability of the environment on Titan. It's moving forward really well. I know I saw the PI here earlier today. I don't know if she's in the audience right now, but Zibby Turtle is around here. I'm sure she'd be happy to tell you as much as you want to hear about this incredible mission that's expected to launch in 2027. And then lastly, I wanted to mention that just a year ago or so, we selected 2 missions to fly to Venus through the Discovery program. It's been a long, long, long time since the U.S. sent a mission to Venus, and there's a lot of exciting science to be conducted at Venus. The 2 missions you can see on the left at the bottom right is the Veritas mission to fly a radar system that will map out the topography of the surface of Venus and also carry spectrometers to get a sense of the surface composition. And then Da Vinci, shown on the bottom right, is a probe to enter down through the atmosphere, collecting in situ measurements of the atmosphere and getting us a detailed profile of that composition. Combined, those 2 missions are going to give us a great sense of insight into the habitability in Venus's past and a sense of what the environment is like there today. And I'm sure this community is aware that a while back there was a lot of interest around whether or not Venus's clouds might be habitable today. And I have, being someone who came from the Venus community at one point in my past, I've encouraged that community to make sure they're making real connections and working with and collaborating with card-carrying astrobiologists to help them really understand the realism of that particular line of thought. So I want to encourage this community as well, that if you have an interest, to please work with those Venus scientists to help keep them on the straight and narrow as they are trying to navigate some interesting waters there. Lastly, I know that you guys had a presentation there was this morning on the Decadal Survey, so I can't tell you anything that they didn't already say. We are really excited about this new Decadal Survey. It's got so many aspirational goals, and we're in the process of digesting all 700 or so pages right now to help us figure out what our next plans are going to be. We expect to start communicating with the public and the science community mid-summer about what our preliminary response is to that incredible Decadal Survey, so please look forward to that. And then finally, I know Michael spoke to some of the IDEA activities that are going on at SMD. He mentioned the National Association of Black Physicists. That's something that within Planetary Science Division we are working and having regular conversations with the leadership of that organization and trying to find better ways to engage with that important community. I'm not going to speak to this slide in particular, but I would like to encourage folks to come to LaJuan Moore's talk at 1 o'clock or 1:08 on Wednesday, where she's going to detail some of the other activities in the IDEA area within planetary science. And so with that, I am going to pause for now, and I think we're handing it over to Mary Voytek. Thank you.
Okay, everything looks ready to go. So we're really excited that Lori and Michael are able to join us. We're going to spend some time now talking about our programs, but mainly focusing on highlights or changes for the future, things that we need you as our community to really pay attention to be as engaged as you possibly can in this really exciting time for astrobiology. So if we can have the next slide. Okay, so this is basically a outline of what we're going to talk about. And actually, although I'm up here first talking, I just wanted to welcome you, tell you how sad I am not to be there with you, and get the opportunity all week to talk you through some of the new things. But we're going to see if we can't cover some of that now. And you know that all of us are always open to being contacted and talking to you whenever you need to. But the first thing we're going to talk about is some new overall requirements in the Planetary Sciences RNA program. We'll go through some specifics for programs that we have. We want to talk a little bit about some other opportunities for you to get involved, opportunities for early career people, and opportunities to get involved in science communication and education and public engagement. So I think the next person that's talking is actually Lindsay.
And thank you very much. I hope you can see the next slide. So the next slide is just, as Mary was saying, a little bit about new requirements. This slide is really serving two purposes here. The first is to give you guys a little bit of information about these new requirements. The first of which that may be relevant to some of you is the requirement for field work. And that is proposers conducting field research must include a description of their use of field sites, and that demonstrates, and then we give you a little bit of specificity about the field research plan that you must include as part of your proposal. And that can be found in section 3.5 or 3.15 of C1. The second is about the science information policy. This SPD 41 describes how scientific information produced from SMD funding is shared. It includes publications, data, and software produced as part of the scientific research activities. And the information that is important about both of these, that's the sort of specificity. And just one other note, sorry, but regarding the field work, we are both asking this for proposals that are being written now, and that will be submitted in Roses 22, as well as work that is undergoing, and we'll be reaching out to our community, to funded researchers within the astrobiology program, and checking their plans for field work and making sure that that they have a plan that reflects a lot of these things. Regarding the science information policy, SPD 41A will be incorporated into Roses 23, so you should look for it there. And the important thing about both of these things is to note, of course, that you always need to read C1. The way the NASA calls are written is that they're sort of hierarchically organizing information. So in addition to reading, for example, C.5 Exobiology program call, you should also be reading C1, which details information about all of the things that are relevant to the Planetary Science Division calls, as well as the guidebook for proposers. So thinking about information that applies to all can be found in sort of hierarchical information guides. I'm also going to be talking a little bit about the Exobiology program. So I am the lead for the Exobiology program, and this year I've been working primarily with Jeff Wheat, who I understand is there. So if you have any questions, definitely, he's another person you can seek out for some additional information. And the Exobiology program. Sorry, say that again?
I said, ask Jeff to stand up and wave.
Oh, Jeff, if you can stand up and wave while I continue, that would be great. I can see them scoping the room. There's Jeff. Somewhere. This feels like The Price is Right. Okay. So we're working this year to execute the Exobiology program as a no due dates program. And one of the benefits of this that we're really trying to hope that we see here is that it'll enhance the ability of a wider range of PIs to propose. Folks that may have personal issues that may come up right before a call, or allow people at smaller universities to have a little bit less specificity about when they need to bug their AOR about things. And so I wanted to address three common misconceptions or common questions I've had about exobiology and no due dates. The first is that you will notice that there is some overlap. This year it's about 6 weeks between the end of the Roses 21 due dates call, no due date call, and the start of the Roses 22 call. So the start of the Roses 222 call was in about mid-February. The Roses 21 exobiology call ended in sort of towards the end of March. That doesn't mean that there's actually a due date. You can apply to either of them while they're open. If you have a concept and you started to get it in the Roses 21 call and you realized you weren't going to be able to get it in, there's nothing. If you didn't submit it yet, you can always submit it in the Roses 22 call. But this is sort of an artificial due date, but it really has nothing to do with our sort of rolling due dates that we have. Additionally, it's really now due dates in that we are having regular reviews. So you should think about it like a bus schedule in a country where buses are frequently on time. And the idea there being that if you don't get it in right now or today, you may miss this particular review, but the next review is happening in a very short time. So you'll be picked up in the next one. We're not waiting for a particular number of proposals in order to run a review. And then this also, again, means there really are new due dates with regards to selections and funding. We will make selections regularly. We have made selections regularly, and we're manage our funding throughout the year. So it's not like if you don't get it in early, there's going to be some problem with funding or anything. So think about it like a household budget, right? You know, you're going to get paid at the start of the month or at some point in the month, and you manage your expenses throughout. I will note our response times are slightly better on average than previously, so we're happy that this is improving that metric. And the other thing that's worth noting is that there is a 1-year prohibition on resubmission. So if you're submitting a proposal that has the same proposal scope, this isn't, P.I. Jones cannot submit again a different concept, but if you are submitting the proposal that has the same proposal scope and it was not selected, you must wait a year from when you originally submitted to resubmit that. And then finally, the thing I want to make note here is about external reviews. For a number of reasons, they are more important than ever before. Because of the spread of proposals, we are having smaller panels and external reviews become more important, right? We want to make sure that we're getting those expert reviews that we do. And so please, if you are asked to serve and provide an external review, please help. Please offer, please agree to do that review if you can make it work. And please take them seriously. Please provide as much information as you can. And then just a general reminder, more information about individual programs and PSD RNA as a whole can always be found at our regular PAC meetings. And this is my last slide for now. I'm going to be handing it over to Becky, who I believe is in the room.
I am.
I think she should be. There she is. I will mute myself. Go ahead, Becky.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Lindsay. So hi, everyone. It's been really great to see so many familiar faces and meet so many new people this week. Last time I was at AbSciCon was in Chicago, so this has been really great. So I'm the program officer for Habitable Worlds, and just wanted to share some things about that program that have changed recently. So starting with Rose's 2020, Hab Worlds moved to using the dual anonymous peer review process, which Michael mentioned earlier. So some of you might have been through that gauntlet at this point, but I did just want to share some pointers on that, especially since we'll be moving towards more programs using dual anonymous. So it's very important to submit a compliant proposal, right, in general. This has been the case for a long time in terms of page counts and font sizes, but that's also important in terms of anonymizing your proposal, and that means that you need to spend a little bit more time figuring out how to write such a proposal. It's a slightly different writing style that you may not be used to, and so be prepared for that, especially the first time you go to submit a proposal to a dual anonymous program. And make sure you really pay attention to the rules, right, for that anonymization. So just as an example, for Habitable Worlds 20, out of the 71 proposals that were submitted, we flagged 16 proposals for noncompliance. This was, a wide range of issues, anything from improperly blacked out text, right? So maybe a human reader can't see it, but a computer can, to minor infractions like improper citation formats, to really egregious errors in terms of identifying the proposal team or the institution throughout the entire document. So really want to help you avoid those issues, and there's some really great resources at the link on this slide on the dual anonymous peer review process. There's examples on the ways to write and a really clear examples of the way that you should follow the rules. Next slide, please. So I'm also the Planetary Protection Research Manager for Planetary, for SMD. So Planetary Protection, some of you are probably very aware of what this is, but some of you may not. So this is the practice of understanding and limiting terrestrial biological contamination throughout the solar system and making sure that we're protecting Earth from possible life forms that could be returned on all of our awesome sample return missions. So we're interested in both carefully controlling that forward contamination, so terrestrial life going out in the solar system, as well as any potential to bring life back. If you can go to the next slide, please. So the Planetary Protection Research Program is one of our PSD RNA programs that is all about enabling our missions to meet those planetary protection requirements. So we're really interested in supporting research as well as technology development that is going to help our missions, do planetary protection. So we've really been working on getting this program expanded these past few years. We're trying to get more regular calls. And I really would just like to plug that, I think a lot of you in the astrobiology community have the right skills and the right sort of mentality to apply those to some planetary protection questions. And so I just want to encourage you and your colleagues to apply to the PPR program. The non-mandatory notice of intents are due in June, and the proposals will be due in July. And we are hoping that we start a more annual cadence to this particular program. So looking forward to seeing some of your proposals. And with that, I think I pass it back to Mary.
You're on mute, Mary.
My dogs are having a bit of a scuffle here. Sorry about that. Yes. So I'm going to talk about ICAR. It's our newest program. It's Interdisciplinary Consortia for Astrobiology Research. It was first solicited 3 years ago. It's the second solicitation, and the announcement for it just came out today. So I wanted to be able to announce it at this meeting without you rushing off to start writing. And we've given you, I think, a lot of time for prep. The step ones are due September 15th of 2022. They're a little bit more involved than some of our step ones. They're about 5 pages, and they will be reviewed and encouraged or discouraged for submission of a step 2, which is due in January 10th, on January 10th in 2023. The selections we expect will be sometime in the late second quarter of 2023. Will be selected and with start dates maybe as soon as that, but we'll see how that goes. We always have to wait for funding to come in, but that's our intent. The areas of research to be solicited this time are all 5 that are of the topics that are related to our RCNs. And for those of you that don't know, but many of you have seen us present to you about how the RCNs relate to the research that the astrobiology program funds. We have an RCN that covers the emergence of life in prebiotic chemistry in early Earth environments, which is the 4th one down on this list. We have one that is starting, just actually had its launch today. We're very excited about it. And that's about primitive cells to multicellularity. The RCN Life is about the evolution of life. We also, the other main goal of the astrobiology program is to search for life elsewhere. And so biosignatures and life detection is the RCN N-fold. And then we have 2 RCNs that are focused on priority research areas for upcoming missions. So Lori mentioned that we have the Europa Clipper. There's some information, or there's some real interest in going back to Enceladus and at least examining the plume, maybe even orbiting and landing, sending possibly another mission back after we collect information about Europa, but we're very interested in ocean worlds. And this RCN brings together planetary and Earth scientists. And then, of course, we launched JWST. We're starting to get data back from that telescope, and there are great ideas that have been endorsed in the astrophysics and astronomy Decadal Survey for outfitting a space telescope that can look at the atmospheres of other of exoplanets and actually really look for Earth. And so Nexus is the RCN that has to do with habitability and detection of life on exoplanets. So proposals that are responsive to the topics that are covered by that are solicited. And we're really excited to see what the community has in these areas to propose, because as I mentioned, this is a super exciting time. But we need to get ready for it. We have a lot of work to do, a lot of research to do. Next slide, please. I'm only going to say a couple of things about mission-related calls that we have. So there will be a Europa Science call. It's going to be run as a DAPPER, which we already talked about how the dual anonymous reviews are handled. It's Europa Science as in science that is linked directly to the research goals of the Europa Clipper mission. We also have programs for participating scientists, and those are usually programs that are run after a mission has been in operation for a while. So keep an eye out for any of the missions that have been described by Lori that have astrobiological content and interest for once they're up and going, an opportunity, even if you weren't part of the original proposing team, to get involved. And I mentioned P-STAR to remind you that for the moment now, given our funding situation, that P-STAR will only be solicited every other year. And then to remind you that we have technology calls. So people, you know, our big challenge in astrobiology is to understand biosignatures, but also to understand what kind of instrumentation and sample handling and collection systems that we need in order to actually search for life on other targets that we'll be going to. So look to any early ideas for Picasso, maturation of those ideas in Matisse, and we have a small business call to get others that are typically not involved in, from the small business community to get involved in this as well. I'm going to mention space biology. I think many of you know that space and physics, biological and physical sciences joined SMD. It is a topic or an area that's related to astrobiology and to planetary protection. And we're going to post these slides. And at the end of the slides, those of us that manage the programs in those divisions and in those specific research programs came up with a nice matrix that sort of shows the difference, so that when you're looking to figure out where your research fits, we don't want you coming to us with something that belongs in planetary protection. I shouldn't say us, planetary protection, if it belongs in EXO, or planetary protection if it belongs in space biology. So really pay attention to those things. We are trying to find a home for everybody's research. Now I'm going to turn this over to 2 opportunities for early career folks, and Lindsay's going to talk about that.
Oops. Let's see, there we go. I was having a problem. Thanks, Mary. As Mary mentioned, we have 2 programs. These are for earlier career folks. And the important thing here is that they sort of reach, they sort of across different research programs in the Planetary Science Division. The first, of course, is C118 or C18 rather, which is the Early Career Award. This one for Roses 22, the proposals are due in December. And the point of the Early Career Award is to fund support research, professional development, and community involvement of outstanding early career scientists. So this is really to fund individuals. The eligibility requirements, you can see them in the call, but briefly, you have to be the PI, COI, or science PI of a relevant program, Roses 19 or Roses 21 award. So it's an award in one of the relevant programs that was selected in either of those Roses years. And you must have your terminal degree of January 1st, 2011 or later. And then there's a couple other things. Again, you can see these in the call, but briefly, it is up to 5 years total for the award for the proposal you have, and no more than 200,000 total. The other program is for graduate students. This is the Future Investigators in Earth and Space Science and Technology, or FINEST. Proposals there are due annually in sort of early to mid-February. The Roses 21 FINEST proposals were actually due in February, on February 11th, I believe it was. So this year, so you should be looking for Roses 22. Those dates will be announced probably towards the end of this calendar year, but you can expect they'll be in sort of early to mid-February. FINEST is not a fellowship. FINEST is actually a grant. For proposals here, you must be a graduate student, either applied, admitted, or enrolled at the time of the proposal to an accredited US university. And you must not have been previously awarded a FINEST or the previous award program, NESIF, for more than 36 months. Finest are for up to 3 years and no more than 50K per year. And it's important to note the call was kind of really reworked in Rose's 21, which was mostly a reorganization for clarity. There wasn't really a change in scope very much, but hopefully when you look at it for Rose's 22 or when you applied for Rose's 21, you found it a lot easier to navigate through. And the thing to note here, these are evaluated for merit, relevance, and research readiness. Research readiness is a relatively new criteria. It really reflects that these are grants. They're awarded to research and not fellowships, which are awarded to individuals. And this is really to account for the difference here in how we review other programs which evaluate qualifications of the team. We understand that graduate students may not necessarily have all of the qualifications to do the research when they propose, but research readiness allows them to say, well, I'll be taking this course in year 2 or whatever that will help me do that research. So that's the Early Career Award and Finest, and I will be passing it next back to Mary to tell us a little bit about astrobiology, staying aware and getting involved.
So we wanted to take this opportunity not only to talk about funding, but to remind you of other ways that are important, not only to us, but I think important for your own careers in research and getting involved in NASA, for ways to get information that is presented, that's available for you to see sort of how things evolve before they get sprung on you, and also ways for you to get your ideas out there so that we can hear what you're interested in as well. And so we have a list of things that we came up with. One of them is to remind you guys that there's a Space Studies Board Committee on Astrobiology and Planetary Science. This is a CAPS meeting. They meet at least twice a year. Sometimes they've met more frequently with special topics. You know, you should sign up because they seem like they're kind of secretive. They kind of spring us on us every once in a while when we're not quite expecting. But if you sign up to the mailing list, they'll let you know when it is and you can listen in. And by all means, if the National Academy comes to you and asks you to serve as a representative of the astrobiology community, please say yes. This is a really important committee for us to interact with and to get a representation from astrobiology on it. There's also the Planetary Sciences Division Advisory Committee. The way we handle that is you nominate yourself. We have a call pretty much every year because we have people rotating on and off. And this is again an advisory committee that meets a couple times a year. You interact more closely with of course Lori and Stephen Reinhardt, who's the head of the RNA program. It's an opportunity to interact with the leads on missions and mission lines. It's a really, of course, those are also have a public component to it. You can listen in on those, but nominate yourself and get involved. There's also the AGS. So there is an assessment group for Mars exploration, for outer planets, for small bodies, and for exoplanets. And this is, again, a great place to hear what your colleagues are working on, find out what other people in your area are doing, what ideas are out there for missions and big science questions to these various bodies. And there's an opportunity, again, to get involved yourself. One of the things that our RCN steering committee members have been doing is attending these meetings more and more to make sure that rather than have astrobiology as an afterthought or a tangential, you're actually involved in these ideas as they get formulated and then presented to our leadership or to the rest of the community. We have the RCNs, affiliate memberships if you aren't actually a steering committee. Just want to remind you that the steering committee, we have leads for each of these. And we're going to go through that, and I think I'll do that now if that's okay. Let's go through the RCNs, Lindsay, and then I can come back. So starting with the very first one that we ever stood up, we have the Nexus for Exoplanet System Science. Below at the bottom, you can see the leads. As long as you have a funded proposal with NASA, you're considered a member of the steering committee, and you help shape the activities of this RCN. And then they have an enormous list of affiliate members, and that's how we engage our international partners. and any other individuals that don't necessarily have funding from NASA, but might have funding for NSF to be involved in this. It's really important. Okay, I guess we're going on. That's fine. We can go to the next one. Move me along. That's great. Then we have the Network for Life Detection, and I should have called out everybody's name on the last one. So Heather Graham is a co-lead, Tori Holler, and Brittany Schmidt. This is about advancing the science and technology that is going to be required for the search for evidence of life beyond Earth. I mentioned this is that Search for Life RCN that we have. And both, we didn't mention before, but all of the RCNs have coordinated workshops and whatnot to engage the community. That is one of their goals. Next slide. We have PCE3, Prebiotic Chemistry in Early Earth Environments with Karen Rogers, Lauren Williams, who I know are at the meeting. I think Tim Lyons flew in today, and unfortunately Ram isn't there in person, but he is one of our cardboard cutouts, so go have your picture taken with him. And I actually would love it if you would all go around getting your picture taken, doing selfies with these, and then send them to us at the program or me personally. It would be really fun to see all of you there. So this is about the earliest planetary formation, the evolution of the near surface inventories and geological settings and building blocks that were available for prebiotic complexity to emerge, and basically peering into the paths with today's biochemistry. In all of these, you can see that there are overlaps between other programs at NASA. This particular program also includes people from our emerging worlds in planetary sciences, and we also work with people at NSF in this particular topic area. Next. Then there's the Network for Ocean Worlds. So the names aren't on there, but Allison is in the top. Kevin Arrigo is just below her. Then there's Alyssa Roden and Chris German. And I believe Alyssa I think Chris and Allison are there. So this is about looking at the physical processes, biogeochemical cycles, exploring Earth analogs to understand properties and processes and technology development. Make sure you look forward to an Ocean Worlds analog coming to you October 2022, sometime probably around the 13th to the 15th in Denver. Next. And then, ta-da, this is our last one. We've had several slides coming soon, and now it has arrived. Life from Early Cells to Multicellularity, the 5th of our 5 RCNs with Ariel Ambar, Batul Kashar, Frank Rosenzweig, and Mary Drozier. You'll see them bopping around the meeting. I think actually Ariel isn't here, but he had a coffee break with you guys this morning. If we can't understand what life has emerged and what it looks like, how are we going to be able to find it anywhere else? So they're going to be looking at the establishment of first cells, the rise of the last universal common ancestor, life's expansion into a planetary scale, because it is one on Earth, and compartmentalization, rise of multicellularity, and cellular differentiation. And again, this is to understand how life can take over a planet. So if we can, that's the end for RCNs. If we can go back, and I'll just finish up a couple of things on that slide, Lindsay. Sorry to bounce around for you. Oh, there we go. All right. All of these organizations hold workshops that we support. Please get engaged, attend. We've made them, I don't know what we're going to do when we can actually travel, because doing them virtually has worked so well. We have those that are, we have many levels of participation so that we can really get the most from our meeting time and the most people involved. We have workshops where the emphasis is on work. So this isn't a collection of presentations, but with all of them, what comes out of there is some kind of report with some findings and observations about the state of the research, or the state of our efforts to look for life. I also just want to make you aware that the Space Studies Board also has a planetary protection committee, and that's another place that certainly, if they ask, please serve and listen in on what they're doing, because without planetary protection, and we're kind of lost in looking for life anywhere else on beyond Earth. So we're going to have a couple of people introduce themselves and talk about various things. And so the next person that's going to talk is Melissa Curvid Brooks about, she's our early career lead.
Hello, everybody. So today there have been a number of sessions about early astrobiology program, early career opportunities, and other early career programs. Some of the major ones that I'll speak about are the Lewis and Clark Fund, and that's a joint partnership between the American Philosophical Society and the NASA Astrobiology program that provides travel awards of up to $5,000 for research in many parts of the world. So we have a cool map that shows places that researchers have gone in the past. So this is open to undergraduates and graduate students, and you can find that if you go to astrobiology.nasa.gov and go to funding and scroll all the way to the bottom, and there are astrobiology specific early career opportunities. Similar to that, there is the Astrobiology Graduate Conference, and some of the organizers for the 2022 conference are here today. The conference is scheduled for early August. It'll be virtual, and the applications are being accepted for about another 10 days. So you can get that in. Go to abgradcon.org. There's an international summer school, and that's another partnership with a Spanish astrobiology group, the Centro de Astrobiología, and I think that both directors of the International Summer School in Astrobiology are here this week. So Rosalie Lopez for the U.S. Portion, so it's about 20 students from the U.S. and 20 students from Europe, and I believe that Victor Parro is here somewhere. And that's scheduled for the very end of July for a week. There are early career collaboration awards, not to be confused with the other early career awards. And this is an opportunity for undergraduates, graduate students, postdocs to travel to a location, either an astrobiology program funded researcher, but to work with somebody that is beneficial to their research. So it can be to learn how to use a new instrument. It can be to test their samples on equipment that they don't have in their lab. It can be to go to a telescope. So all of this information is available on the Astrobiology program website. And the last is NASA postdoctoral program. The folks from Oak Ridge Associated Universities will be here by tomorrow, and they'll be here for a few days. The astrobiology program supports typically 15 postdoctoral fellows for up to 2 years for astrobiology program funded researchers. And there are quite a few NPPs who are here and presenting this week. One last thing I want to bring up is we have a DEA team, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility team. So the members are myself, Daniela Scalise, who's also the education and communication lead, but she couldn't be here this week. Aaron Gronstall, who has been signing the graphic novels downstairs, and Dr. Benita Bell, who has been our conduit to minority serving institutions and HBCUs. So we have, if you look back, you may have seen last year a letter to the community. We've been involved in the issues about fieldwork policies. We have presented to the Decadal group on the state of the profession. And if anybody would like to get involved, please let us know. So my email address is melissa.curvin@nasa.gov. If you'd like to get involved in any DEA issues, please let us know, and we'd love your input. So I think that's about it. So I'll turn it back to Mary.
Okay, we just have a couple more slides, and so I'll go through those. Well, we wanted to make sure that you got to see everybody. We mentioned Daniela Scalise, who unfortunately isn't joining us. She leads our communication team, and one of the most, and also our education lead as well. One of the most important things that she does is the Science Communication Guild, and if I can have that slide very, very quickly. Many of you remember that we used to do FameLab USA. We had, I think actually the last time we were at Georgia Tech, we actually had Nichelle Nichols here to host the FameLab finals. It ended up spurring a lot of and inspiring a lot of different science communication initiatives. There's a list down here of the explainables, science talk, space in your face, and all of those are activities, either trainings, workshops, and science communication opportunities that are hosted by some of our trainees from FameLab. So the Communications Guild is the next step from that. We have organized, or should say Daniela has organized all of the people that are interested in communicating whatever your medium is and connecting it to the SciAC and the science communication opportunities that we have at NASA. So you may hear from her in the future. And again, please get involved. Can we pop back to that last slide? Actually, the one other thing I just wanted to mention is many of you remember Barry Bloomberg. There's an honorary chair for him at the Library of Congress. This year's chairs are Lucas Mix, who we all know, and David Barron, who is actually a journalist. So they spend 6 months at the Library of Congress actually working on academic issues that relate astrobiology exploration in the humanities. And so they actually have a podcast that I want to put a plug in for. We've been tweeting about it. Check it out. They've interviewed some really interesting people about astrobiology and exploration. And then the final, second to the final slide we have is just to remind you, you all know that our planetary science and astrobiology Decadal Survey came out. We're digesting the 777 pages of it. You guys saw a great presentation by Rob and Canup over lunch. But I wanted to let you know that there are two other decadal surveys you should be paying attention to. One is the one by Astrophysics. That was already released, Pathways to Discovery in Astronomy and Astrophysics for the 2020s. There's some very important findings in there and recommendations about the search for life beyond our solar system. And then the biological and physical sciences are doing their decadal as well, and that's expected in 2023. And I think then my final slide is, I am just so pleased and honored to be able to share with you that our very own John Barros received the NASA's Exceptional Scientific Achievement Medal for 2021. Unfortunately, he can't be with us at the meeting, but this was for exceptional scientific achievements advancing NASA's search for life in the universe by expanding our understanding of environments in which life can originate and thrive. And so I would like to take this opportunity to give him a giant round of applause because it's just an awesome achievement. And I'm so glad that we were able to get this medal for him. So please, people who are there, applaud. This is really great. I can't hear, but I'm hoping you're doing that. Anyway, that's the end of our presentation.
Sorry. So we have time for some questions. If you have a question or a comment you'd like to make, please advance to one of the standing microphones and I will recognize you. Please don't forget to state your name and your affiliation. Yes.
Hi, Morgan Cable, JPL. Thank you all so much for being here. For those of you who dialed in, Mary, can you hear me all right? Oh, good. Okay. Hi. I had two questions. The first one was that you have all presented a wealth of information. There were a couple of workshops I wasn't even aware of. Is there one place where all of that is sort of captured, like a website we could go to later on so we don't have to take screen grabs of all your beautiful slides?
Oh my gosh, there is an astrobiology program website, and we have tried to make it as navigable as possible. We have a calendar where we post all the workshops. We try to advertise them as they become known to us about registering and signing up. We have links on our page. I mean, we have like 60 some pages of frequently asked questions about our funding opportunities, the RCNs, with additional links to get you more information or to get you to a human to talk about what you need to know. And we plan on posting these little updates just to draw some attention to some things that we thought we needed to talk about with you here. So we'll post these slides on that site too.
That is wonderful. All right, I will definitely check that out. And my second question, if I may, really quickly, is for Lori. Hi. So NF5, coming out soon-ish. When can we expect any potential details about, oh, I don't know, cost cap and things like that?
That is a great question. So yeah, the question has to do with the New Frontiers 5 call, and we've indicated that that is going to be moved forward. We had shifted it out to 2024, and now we're, 2024, and we're now thinking of trying to get that released in 2023. The schedule that you can expect is that there will be an announcement very, very soon to let you know what the schedule is going to look like. And so the first announcement will really be pretty bare bones with just schedule information of when you're going to know what and when the proposals will be due. And within that schedule, that will contain more information about when you will get the community announcement that contains the details you're actually looking for, which will include cost cap and other parameters that you need to design the missions. Okay, you bet.
How are we handling questions online, or are we not?
Mary should be able to see them.
Mary, can you see the chat, or Lindsay, can you guys see the chat? Is there any questions?
We have one question there. And Mary, do you want to answer this one? I'm also getting a note that we need to close down the room because this session is ending now. I'm not sure. Do we want to ask the one question we have online? I think I can see one person standing in a microphone. Can we?
Yeah,
Caroline, can we go with that?
Yeah, so the question was, have you contemplated a specific mission RCN, one that could support astrobiology on all of NASA's portfolio of missions, something that could integrate across the existing RCNs? That's a really great, it's from Andrew Steele at Carnegie. That's a really great idea to consider. We actually have tried to think about the best way to integrate across the RCNs. And again, one of the ideas that we had was to infuse them into astrobiologists into an ag, but I think the RCN structures might be the way to go. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you, Steely.
And the last question belongs to?
Avi Mendel, NASA Goddard. It was actually quite related to the last question, is that now that exoplanet missions are really becoming planetary science missions, and planetary science usually supports interpretation of planetary science missions. And I'm not sure, the RCN question is related, but is there a plan long-term to think about how planetary science can begin supporting more directly the interpretation of exoplanet science coming down from non-planetary division missions in the long term?
So Mary, did you want to say anything on that one first, or would you like me to take that?
I was going to let you take that because I think it's at your level that we deal.
Sure. So thank you for the question, Avi, and you're right. I mean, what we're seeing is kind of this blurring between the divisions, right? That the stovepipes that we have become irrelevant at some point, that the science we need to do is going to cross over between the expertise that's in astrophysics, and in this case, probably a large mission funded by astrophysics, but the science is going to cross over into the planetary realm, where the planetary astrobiology side of the community really has the needed expertise. So, we are having conversations about how we make sure that we have that needed expertise at the very beginning, to make sure that if there's science definition teams, that we're getting the right expertise there, both from a planetary science perspective and also astrobiology perspective. And then I think, part of that planning as we go forward is going to be, how do we assure or ensure that we have things in place for planetary science analyses of data. We're already seeing this the other way around. For example, working with astrophysics right now to think about how astrophysics community is going to use data from, for example, the NEO-Surveyor mission, which is the Near Earth Object Surveyor mission, which is a planetary science mission to detect and characterize near Earth objects. But the astrophysics community is also interested in those data. So we're looking at ways that we can enable that, work in the other direction, and I'm optimistic that we're going to find good ways to work the other way as well. Good question.
Well, thank you very much for your interest and attention. Hope to see you around at the conference. Good night.